Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, evening, afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me on episode 33 of the show about the show. Today's guest is former Major Leaguer Todd Sears, who will join me here momentarily to talk about his career. Happy Rusev Day to everybody. I wanted to also give a big thank you to the loyal listeners of this podcast. I've been taking some time away due to some family issues, and I hope to be able to put out more content in the very near future. I have 2 more episodes coming up today, and they are going to be amazing, unbelievable, and fantastic, just like this episode and every episode of the Touch 'Em All podcast is. We're going to talk to Major Leaguer Todd Sears. We're going to talk about his first Major League home run, what it's like being drafted and moving organizations, as well as the organization that he's a part of that helps him give back to the game that gave him so much. So without any further ado, I am pleased to welcome former Minnesota Twin and San Diego Padre Todd Sears to the show. How you doing, Todd?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. So talk to me a little bit about kind of how you decided that baseball was going to be the sport that you were going to play.
Definitely, and it was kind of a weird, different situation in high school because I was actually recruited by more schools for basketball than I was for baseball, and it was growing up in Iowa. We played our high school baseball in the summer, whereas just about every other state plays their high school baseball in the spring. So you might not get as much exposure as some of these other states and stuff like that. But so
right.
Kind of going into my senior year summer baseball season, I for some reason my numbers just exploded, and it kind of got me on the map a little bit with some scouts on the baseball side, and at that time I was still kind of going back and forth. Am I going to play basketball? Am I going to try to play baseball and basketball and that sort of thing? So,
right.
And then so eventually I kind of, after thinking about it for a while, I eventually decided that I wanted to try baseball route because there might have been more of a future there than on the basketball side. And so I chose to sign with the University of Nebraska, and I still had the opportunity to play baseball there or basketball there if I chose to. I ended up not deciding to play basketball, which I somewhat regret. But it was one of those where, baseball just kind of stood out a little bit more as far as the potential future and potential professional career. And I was then drafted out of high school in the 19th round by the California Angels at the time, and decided to not sign and just go play in Nebraska. And eventually played there for 3 years and was drafted in the 3rd round after my junior year. So the whole kind of situation worked out pretty well, and it was a good experience to go play college baseball and, have a little better opportunity going from the 19th round to the 3rd round was pretty cool as well.
Absolutely. And you go and you play at the University of Nebraska. You're a Cornhusker. You earned first-team All-Big 12 honors in 1997. You hit .421 with 17 home runs and 79 RBIs in 62 games. That's pretty impressive. Did you just feel like you were kind of on a roll? Did you know you were going to be drafted?
It was one of those where I didn't think about it a whole lot at the time. I knew a lot of scouts were talking to me towards the end of that season as far as, signability, that sort of thing. And so it was one of those where I knew about it, but I didn't want to quite think about it just because I didn't know what to expect as far as where I might potentially go or anything like that.
Sure.
I went and played in the Cape Cod League the summer before. I was supposed to go after my freshman year, but, got hurt and I couldn't make it. So I played one summer in the Cape Cod League, and I did okay. I wouldn't say I did great, but I did okay and kind of held my own a little bit. And then so that kind of, helped to get some exposure that way. But, yeah, I mean, talking to my college coach at the time, the closer it came, that it was more likely that it was going to be, a top 10 round pick somewhere. We just didn't know where.
And Todd actually ended up being drafted in the third round of the 1997 Major League Baseball draft by the Colorado Rockies. Obviously, you never played with the Rockies. Can you kind of talk about that decision about being drafted by them but not signing with them, and what kind of went into that?
Yeah, it was as far as the Angels, not signing with the Angels.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, the Angels. Yeah, not the Rockies.
Yeah, no problem at all. Honestly, it was one of those where I knew I wasn't physically ready or mentally ready. I mean, I was probably 6'6", 180 pounds, tall and skinny, and didn't have a whole lot of muscle at the time. So I knew that, it would probably take a little while to get to where I would potentially want to be coming out of high school. And so it was one of those also where I just wanted to play in college as well. I wanted to go to college and have that experience as well. And I had a small, a decent-sized number, signing bonus number, where I don't even think it was a serious, really contention to go sign, just the 19th round. If it would have been, top 5 round, top 10 round, that might have been a little different, might have been a little tougher decision, but it really wasn't that hard of a decision in the 19th round. Just, the money and that sort of thing wasn't to me at the time worth foregoing college and getting that experience and the whole college experience and getting, schooling and all that stuff started at the same time. So all in all, it was a pretty easy decision to not sign with the Angels out of high school at the time.
And so you ended up you made your Major League debut with my favorite team, the Minnesota Twins, in 2002. Mm-hmm. But talk about playing in the minor leagues.
It was definitely an interesting, neat, tough experience all together in one. And it was the first time where baseball had, you're doing baseball every day. In college, you still kind of you're practicing a lot, you're playing a lot, but it's not quite the same. Whereas once you get to the professional ranks, even in the minor leagues, it's every day you got to be ready to go, regardless of, how you feel, what you're doing, how things are going. You got to be ready to play no matter what. And it was definitely a pretty neat experience to play in the minor leagues. It's tough. It's a grind, and you're playing every day. You got sometimes 12 or 13-hour bus rides. Tough to sleep on the bus. You could pull in at 1 in the afternoon, go to the field at 2, and got to play that night. So it definitely is a grind, and it's definitely tough. But it was such a cool experience just for the the relationships that you have with teammates and coaches, and just learning how to play a game that every day, that it was a pretty cool experience.
Can you talk about, that 2002 Twins team was pretty special. Can you kind of tell us who some of your teammates were in the minors that kind of made an impact for the Twins that people might know about?
Yeah, definitely. That 2002 team was a very special team. I think at the time, we led all of baseball in home runs up until, I think, August at some point. So it was pretty cool. But some of the guys that played on that team, Justin Morneau, Michael Kadire, Matt LeCroy, Casey Blake, and I'm forgetting a few that really made a big impact. Michael Restovich, Michael Ryan, a lot of guys that, went up and played a long time in the big leagues for a while. And it was definitely probably one of the most fun teams I've had the experience of playing on, just because we ended up winning the AAA championship there, and it was just a great team, a great, bunch of guys to be around, and we won quite a few games that year too, so it was kind of special in more ways than one. So it was a really a fun team to be on. And in Edmonton, we were up in Edmonton, Canada, so it's kind of fun being up there. A unique experience to be in Canada and doing a lot of that. So it was probably one of the most fun seasons I've had playing baseball, and just the group of guys was really a big part of that.
Now, I know you mentioned Justin Morneau was on your team. He's obviously now retired and works in the Twins front office. Was he the catcher? Because he started his minor league career as a catcher. Was he the catcher for you guys that year?
Nope. At that point, he had moved and transitioned to first base. So we kind of, rotated the first back, quite a bit, and DH and that sort of thing. I think he'd been playing first for a couple of years, and he was still, learning the position and trying to, get some experience playing first there. And obviously, he played in the big leagues for a long time and did very well at first. It was a cool experience to be able to play with him as well.
When you played with him in the minors, were you able to kind of tell that he was going to have the success he had in the majors? Was it like you watch him take batting practice and you're just like, wow, this guy is strong. He's got some real power. He's going to do some damage in the majors.
Yeah, he was definitely special. But I will say there's so many guys in, AAA and AA that have that kind of power, and it's hard to really project, what kind of career they might have if they get a chance. But he was one of those where, you watch him take batting practice, you're like, wow, just seeing all the balls, how far he hit some of those balls and how hard he hit some of those balls. And it was definitely something that you knew that if he had the chance, he would get up there and stay for a while, and he eventually got the chance, and he did. And but yeah, he was definitely. It was fun to watch him hit and watch him take BP for sure.
And Todd spent parts of 2 seasons in the major leagues, splitting time between the Twins and the Padres. He was called up to the Twins on September 17th, 2002. What do you remember about getting that call and then making your major league debut? Kind of walk us through that whole process.
Yeah. We had just won the AAA championship in 2002, and we're in Salt Lake, and there's a group of us that went up, and Michael Kadire, Lee Croy, Restovich, all those guys we all kind of went up together. But it was one of those where it was right when we got to the hotel that night. We met with the GM Terry Ryan at the time, and he let me know that I was probably going to be playing that next night. So I was starting at first game that I was going to be at. I was starting, so I was definitely nervous. I remember just walking onto the field, and it was kind of a surreal experience where we were playing in Detroit at the time, and just walking into the field and just taking a moment and just like, wow, this is really happening type thing. Right. And I had a pretty good year in AAA, so you never know if you're going to get called up or not. And so the fact that I was able to get an opportunity to go play up there for a little while, and the Twins had a great team at that time. The couple seasons I was up and down with them, they were playoff teams, and they were really good as far as the teams that they had. So it was really cool to be a part of winning teams and successful teams at that time, and that made it a really cool experience as well.
Yeah, for fans who don't know, the 2002 Twins are the team that beat the Oakland A's in the playoffs that year. That was the year that the Oakland A's won the AL record at that point, 20 straight games. The Twins ended their season and then had their season heartbreakingly ended by the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Todd ended up hitting .333 with 2 doubles, 3 runs in 7 games. He was brought to the Twins in the 2003 season before being dealt to the Padres. You played in 33 games. You hit .247 with 2 home runs and 11 RBIs that season between the 2 clubs. But in Boston on May 9th, 2003, you hit your first major league home run and drove in 4 RBIs. Can you talk about who you hit that home run off of and how special that was?
Definitely. Yeah, that was, in my most of my big league time, I was spent, going back and forth, AAA, big leagues, and filling in for, players on the disabled list and filling in positions and stuff like that. So leading up to that game, it was one of those where Denny Hawking was coming off of the disabled list, I believe. I think it was him. And so, I went to the field that day kind of expecting to get sent back down to the minors. And, because I kind of figured that's what was been happening. And so I kind of, assumed that was going to be it. And then as I walked in the locker room, I checked the lineup and I almost did a triple take where I looked at the lineup and I saw my name hitting fourth against the Red Sox, and I was like, wait a minute. That can't be right, type thing. And so it was one of those where I was just a little bit, because I walk in with the mentality, well, here we go, back to the minors again, and now hitting fourth against the Red Sox with none other than Pedro Martinez starting that night, and it was one of those where we were actually playing in Minnesota at the Metrodome, and my first at bat, and I faced him a little bit in Boston. And I saw him pretty good. I felt pretty comfortable with him. I know he's Pedro Martinez, one of the best pitchers in the game, but I saw him pretty well for some reason in how his pitches. So the first inning, my first at bat, I hit a pretty hard line drive to center field and scored a run. And then I don't know if it was my second or third at bat, but then it had a pretty good hitting count. I was just looking for something to hit hard and got a fastball and hit it over the up in the right field seats up there a little bit. So it was definitely an amazing experience to, first of all, to hit your first home run in the big leagues is pretty cool, but then to do it against Pedro Martinez, a Hall of Fame pitcher, at the same time, it was an unbelievable moment. And, it's I still get, goosebumps thinking about it now. It's pretty exciting.
Talk to me about circling the bases. So you're circling the bases, you come touch home plate. Is it one of those things where the guys, in the dugout kind of knew it was your first home run, so they kind of ghosted you a little bit and gave you a hard time, or was everybody just excited about it as you were?
Well, running around the bases was a blur, right? I think I was smiling. I tried not to run too fast, and I tried not to run too slow. But I just remember it was a blur, and it was loud. There's a lot of people at that game, and it was the Red Sox were, I think they were, leading their division at the time, so they were a good team, and so the Twins, Minnesota, packed it in that night, and going in there, and the guys were pretty excited, and after the game, they're just like, man, you hit your first home run off Pedro, and it's so a lot of the guys, and we're talking about who they hit their first home run off of and stuff like that, but. It was definitely just such a cool opportunity to have, and then to hit a home run off Pedro again. It's pretty amazing to look back and think that actually happened. And sometimes I have to show guys the Sports Center clips. Yeah, this really happened. You're like, no way. And so it's kind of funny that way. It's pretty neat, pretty cool.
Now, one of the traditions for big leaguers is when they get their first hit or their first home run, they tend to trade either something of theirs or a teammate's to get that item back. Did you do that? Do you have that ball? And if so, what did you have to give up for it?
I do have that ball. I think I can't remember exactly what I did, but I think I had to give him like a Jock Jones or a Torrey Hunter signed bat and something like that. And so it was pretty simple to do, and the guys were great about it. So it was pretty neat.
Now, talk to me. I grew up going to the Metrodome. A lot of my listeners are Twins fans, as I do live in Minnesota. Talk to me about playing in the Metrodome, kind of what that atmosphere is like, what that building was like, because a lot of Twins players have been on here and said that they liked playing on it, and a lot of opposing players said, "Oh, it was terrible surface to play on." What did you think about both the fans in Minnesota making that kind of noise, and then also the Metrodome in general?
I loved it, to be honest with you. And again, I wasn't up very long to really appreciate it. Maybe parts of a couple seasons, but just the atmosphere alone, it was such a unique environment. When you have the dome and when you have, the turf and all that stuff, and the fans are right there pretty much on top of you. It was really cool, and I think, my limited time there, I think I only lost one pop-up that I think Kenny Rogers had to make a running catch and save me for that one. So it was one of those where I was pretty happy about only losing one, because that was one of the things I was kind of paranoid about was, the pop-ups and stuff like that. But the fans were awesome, just unbelievable fans, very friendly, very, baseball like-minded, and it was a pretty cool culture and environment at the time to play in that dome, and that was an advantage for the Twins, and teams going there, most teams did not like to play in the dome, and so I think it was a good advantage for the Twins at the time.
Now, obviously, the Metrodome has been torn down. They put up a football stadium there, and the Twins have moved to Target Field. Have you been to Target Field, or have you seen games there at all? Or
we went. I was done playing at the time, and I think we went the second season it was open just to go take a look and check it out. And it was a really cool stadium to see it. It was pretty impressive, actually. So it was really neat to see it and just see kind of what it was all about. But to me, it doesn't compare to the Dome, because that's I like the Dome, and
right.
And that was kind of where my Twins time was spent. So it's
Absolutely.
I always have a special place in my heart for the Dome.
There was definitely some Dome magic, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So you finished it up in the you finished with the Albuquerque Isotopes in 2007. Mm-hmm. You hit 302 with a home run and 10 RBIs. After that, what made you decide that, hey, it's time?
Definitely. The last 4 years that I played, I ended up having 3 surgeries. So it was one of those where it was just a lot of wear and tear. I had a back surgery that after I was traded to the Padres from the Twins in 2003, that next year, 2004, I ended up having a back surgery. And that started my decline as far as trying to make it through. And then I tried to come back and ended up having 2 more shoulder surgeries. So at that point, it was just taking a toll on my body and stuff like that. So I just had a little girl at the time as well. So with the injuries and with starting a family at the time, it was just one of those decisions. It was easier probably than I expected it to be, because I would have loved to play for another couple of years. I just don't know if I had it. Or mentally, it was at that time, because I ended up playing 11 or 12 seasons, and mostly in the minor leagues, obviously, but it was still a toll, mentally and physically. And it was at that point, it was just time to move on.
Well, obviously, you talked about just moving on, and one of those things that you've done is decide to do what many players do, and that is give back. Sean Sedlisek established Said Sports, Inc. in 2006 with the goal of giving back to the game that had meant so much to him and played such a huge role in his life. And him, yourself, Matt Williams, you guys decided to partner and establish Complete Game Baseball to continue the growth of the organization in pursuit of Sean's dream to give back. Can you talk about Complete Game Baseball and what the impact it's had on your life and and how it affects people?
Definitely. Well, the first couple of years after I was finished, I went back and I had about a year and a half left of school. So right when I finished playing, I went back to Nebraska and finished my education there. And then for a couple of years, I stayed away from baseball and I tried to do a couple other things, but it was one of those where it wasn't the same. I still wanted to be involved with coaching. I still wanted to help youth players, and so working with Sean, and I knew Sean, we played together or against each other in high school, college, and then pro balls. He played with the Royals for a little bit, so I knew of him, and then we met in one of the off seasons in Kansas City where we live, and we started talking, and then we just brainstorming about things to do, and we came up with the idea of establishing a baseball club in Kansas City that focuses on development and really preparing players for the next level, whether it's high school, college, anything like that. And it's something that we're both passionate about, and it also helps to keep us in the game, to keep us around baseball, and anytime that it's fun, because our job is to go to practices, help youth players, and go to games and watch games, and really try to be a positive, encouraging environment for some of these young players to try to help them become the best players they can be. And for some, it might be they might top out at the high school level. Some might go to college and play college as well. And who knows where that road's going to lead them. But, we try to focus on respecting the game, respecting umpires, respecting the other players. So trying to help players understand to play the game the right way, always hustle, always play hard. So a lot of the things that, we learned through the professional ranks at the same time is trying to pass that along to some of the youth and young players as well. And it's really encouraging to see, a lot of players start to take that in and start to do some of that on their own. It's been a pretty cool experience, and this is our 5th year doing it, and I think we've grown. We've doubled in size the first 3 or 4 years as far as number of teams, and now we're sitting at about 27 teams total. And so we have a lot of teams, a lot of players that play for us, and it's trying to be a positive environment for players to play.
It sounds like a lot of those things that you talked about, respecting the game, respecting umpires and teammates, that sounds a lot to me like the old Twins way thing that the Twins
Definitely
used to preach.
Yes, and
now,
a lot of it is the same.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, a lot of the stuff that we have picked up is the same thing. Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned you live in Kansas City. Do you follow the Royals?
A little, not as much, and I try to follow the Twins a little bit more. I don't watch a lot of baseball. I'll check into some games every once in a while, but I always still try to see where the Twins are at in the standings and stuff like that. But we might go to a game or two a year, but it's not too many.
Who's your favorite Major League Baseball player to watch? Just strictly from a fan point of view.
From a fan point of view, there's a bunch of them. I would probably say I like some of the left-handed first basemen like Joey Votto. I like to watch him hit. The usual, the bigger guys, stuff like that. So it's Mike Trouts they're always fun to watch for sure.
Now when you played for the Twins, you played for Gardy. Do you have any Ron Gardenhire stories that are appropriate for the podcast? Preferably a story
not too
about
many. Not too many.
Preferably a story about him getting ejected, maybe.
Unfortunately, I wasn't around enough for many of those, which is surprising. Because it seems frequent. But, Gardy, he was, even though I wasn't up very long with them, he was just an unbelievable coach and so just a solid guy, a good guy, and always there to help you, whatever you needed. But I loved my time spent with him, and he was a big factor in, a lot of the things that I did moving forward from that.
Now we got about 2.5 minutes left. Do you have a funny story or a memorable story that from your time in the big leagues that you can talk about? Obviously, we talked about your first home run and stuff, but do you have either a funny or a poignant story that you can share?
Just the hardest, I guess, the funniest thing, I guess, not for me was what the rookie hazing aspect of it. And unfortunately, I had to go through that twice. So when I was with the Twins in that 2002 season, they got all the rookies had to wear dresses. So we had to wear dresses, necklaces, all that stuff from the flight into the hotel and that. So, and then the next year when I was traded and up with the Padres, I had to do it again. So another time I had to wear a dress through the flight to the hotel and all that other stuff. So that was a little bit, uncomfortable, but it was still it was fun to take part in to be a part of that at the same time. But that's probably the extent of the funny stories that I have is the two episodes of wearing a dress as part of the rookie hazing.
Being a former major leaguer, obviously, you only played 2 seasons. Do you see that? How much fan mail do you get?
I still get it's slowly dwindling a little bit, but I still get a few 5-6 letters every month or two with cards to sign or to autograph cards and send them back. I love signing it. It's pretty cool, and it's one of those when I get it, I'm pretty quick about returning it just because it's like I think it's pretty cool. And I did that when I was a kid. I sent some autographs in and had them sign it and come back, and I think it's pretty special to actually be on the other side of it And that's one thing I did too when I played, is I always took the opportunity to sign and to just be cordial with some of the youth at the games and stuff like that, because it was, being a baseball player, being on that stage is definitely a cool situation, and anytime you can make a kid's day by giving him a broken bat or an old pair of batting gloves or something like that was definitely pretty cool. So yeah, I definitely enjoy the signing the autographs as well.
Absolutely. I could ask you more questions and go another half an hour, but I'm going to let you go. Todd Sears, former major leaguer for the Twins and Padres, thank you so very much. It's been my distinct pleasure to have you on the podcast today. Thank you very, very much for coming on.
It was a pleasure, and I was honored to be on your show, so thank you for having me.
Thanks, Todd. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Todd Sears, former major leaguer. Again, that was that story he talked about, hitting his first home run and the atmosphere in the dome and hitting it off of Pedro Martinez. That's a pretty cool story. That's one of those stories that, Pedro might not remember giving up the home run to Todd, but Todd's always going to remember hitting that off of Pedro. And then also, obviously, what he did for complete game baseball is it's just really nice to see players coming back, players helping give back to the game that meant so much to him. And you heard him talk about how he that after he left the game and graduated from Nebraska, he wanted to stay involved, and he tried to do other things, and he just missed the game and loved the game. So that was a really, really cool interview. Join me for 2 more episodes. I'm not going to give anything away today. They are going to be episodes that are unique and unlike any other episodes I have done on this podcast. It will be episodes 34 and 35. They will be coming at you later today. Thank you guys very, very much, and we will see you down the road in podcast land.